Welcome to the story of the disciples. This story is from chapters 4, 9, and 10 in the Gospel of Matthew. The lesson focus for grades 3 and 4 is Jesus calls us into a life of service. The story of Jesus calling his 12 disciples is scattered and even incomplete in the Gospel of Matthew. There are several chapters between Jesus' invitation to different people, and we're not told anything about how 7 of the disciples are called. The call itself seems understated, but when Jesus says, "Follow me," people do. Peter and Andrew drop their nets and go with him. James and John leave their boat with their father to follow Jesus. When Jesus calls Matthew the tax collector from his booth, he too leaves everything to follow Jesus. We're left with the sense that all 12 responded quickly and left the life that they knew for an unknown life following Jesus. In Matthew 10:1, we learn what the disciples' mission is: to cast out unclean spirits and to cure those who are sick. It is a life of service that Jesus has called them to. 12 ordinary men, fishermen, tax collectors, brothers, leave their lives to follow the one who says simply, "Come, follow me." Jesus loves us, and Jesus invites us to follow him so that we might be a part of spreading God's love and grace in the world. We can follow Jesus. When we do, we become disciples and our lives change forever. We are called into a life of service, a life of love. The immediate reaction of Peter, Andrew, James, John, and Matthew might inspire us to examine our lives and make a commitment to participate in Jesus' ministry of teaching, preaching, and healing. It is a call to walk away from everything that gets in the way of God's work in the world. Sometimes answering that call can mean making difficult decisions. Jesus was about change. He regularly turned, and continues to turn, lives upside down. Life in the kingdom of heaven is radically different. Everything changes. The disciples in this story leave family and occupations. Those who follow Jesus are called from old, often comfortable ways of life into a new set of relationships and new priorities. Jesus' first disciples were the 12 he called to follow him. Jesus has disciples who follow him today. Just like he did with the original 12, Jesus calls us into a life of service. Kids this age value friendships, and they're also very sensitive when they feel left out. Support kids who don't seem to have close friends in your class by assigning partners and groups instead of letting kids choose. Are there particular Sundays when it seems like attendance in your class is particularly low? If possible, plan ahead for those days and try to have something special to do for the kids who are there. Kids this age tend to drag when their friends are absent, so planning something exciting will help prevent any negativity. The 12 disciples Jesus called in this story were men, but many women followed Jesus' teachings too. Remind kids of life in Bible times. Women did not have as much independence as men. Unlike the men we hear about in this story, most women would have been unable to leave their families to follow a stranger. This doesn't mean that women can't follow Jesus. Jesus calls us all into a life of service. If you want to put a little extra prep into the opening prayer, find an adult helper who would be willing to call you on your cell phone. Have your helper stand outside of the classroom where you can still hear. On your prearranged cue, have them call you, then follow the instructions in the leader guide. Kids will notice and appreciate this extra effort. Be mindful of the range of artistic ability in your group when kids are working on the face-off leaflet activity. Steer your group away from comparing whose drawings are most accurate. The point isn't to compare artistic talents. The point is, anyone who looks like anything can be a follower of Jesus. Jesus calls you and your kids to be disciples. Have fun discovering how you and your group can follow Jesus and catch people. Jesus calls us into a life of service.